Hey everybody, this is Matthew Naiman from RocketStock.com, and today we're taking a look at the Submerge collection. Submerge is a collection of over 130 visual effects elements, all optically captured in 4K. Elements from Submerge are compatible with any nonlinear editing system, but let's start by taking a look at Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere, and Final Cut Pro. So I'll meet you over there. So we're going to grab our water waves and drop them onto the timeline, and let's just take a look at this clip. As you can see, it's this sort of very beautifully shot, nice clear bubbly water sort of frothing and splashing. It's really kind of a nice clip, and rather than use it as a visual effects element, I thought it would be interesting to show you how I might use it for a little bit of title design. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make ourselves a title. Why don't we make a title that says, I don't know, Submerge. I'm going to jump over to our line panel, drop it right in the center. Let's center our anchor point. And let's scale up our layer. Wonderful. So I think the first thing I'm going to want to do is determine whether or not I want some sort of animation on this submerge layer. I'm going to want to think about this ahead of time because there's going to be some pre-compositing involved for this technique. So why don't we have the submerge layer start maybe down below the water. I'm going to hit P to twirl up my position keyframes. And then on the first big splash, why don't we have Submerge pop up? And then as the water recedes, settle back down. And then maybe as the water swells again, it comes up a little bit more. A little bit down on the next one. And then a little up. And then a little down until it can settle and stay where it is for the end. I'm now going to open up my rotation keyframes, press U to reveal all my keyframes, and at key points I'm going to add a little bit of rotation to our text. And I'm just trying to animate this text to kind of mimic the movement of the water a little bit. Doesn't really have to be too accurate. You could do some really crazy stuff here and actually spend the time keyframe animating the text so that it looks like it's really on top of the water and riding the waves. But I think for the purposes of this tutorial, we're just going to kind of go for something pretty general. And of course, I have no idea whether or not this is going to look right until I hit play, but it'll give us something to work with. Okay. I'm now going to grab all my keyframes, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and let's do a quick preview. Sure, it's not exactly perfect, but I think it kind of gets the point across. I'm just going to tweak these keyframes a little bit. And actually, I think about here I'm going to have it settle down just so that it can kind of end as a title that we can read for a little bit more time. Let's get rid of those keyframes and preview that again. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Great. Once we're happy with that, we're going to want to pre-compose this layer, and we're going to want to make sure that we move all attributes into new composition. I'm going to call this Submerge Animated. Click Enter. And now we have one layer that has no attributes, that just has our animation baked into it, and that's important for what we're going to do next. Next up, we have our water layer that we were playing with, and you can see that it's actually sort of quite a bit bigger than our original layer. I kind of like the center portion, but I'm now going to shrink it down a little bit. And once it's a scale that I think we all agree we like, I'm going to pre-compose it right there. Pre-compose, water, pre-comp. Now we have two layers each that have no attributes, which means we can start doing some interesting things to it. On our submerge layer, I'm going to go up to Effects, Distort, and I'm going to look for an effect called Displacement Map. Now, Displacement Map has the ability to grab other layers and use that layer's information to displace the layer you're applying the effect to. So I'm going to select the water pre-comp as our displacement map layer. I'm going to set both of these channels to luminance, since it's a black and white clip. And then I'm going to crank up the distortion amount. Now you don't want to go too far because things start getting really, really wonky. But I'm going to set them both at around 40. And then let's do a real quick preview so you can see what this effect is starting to do. As you can see, this effect is taking our footage and distorting it based on the brightness value of the displacement map layer, which is really, really cool. It actually starts to look like refraction through water and give it a really kind of naturalistic watery feel. Now, we can even cheat another effect to give us an even cooler look. We can go up to Effects, and we can go to Blur Sharpen, and we're going to select a camera lens blur. Now, as you can see, we just totally blurred out our text. But the camera lens blur has a really neat feature where you can use a blur map to determine how much of your image is going to be blurred. This is usually used with a gradient so that you can have a fall off of depth of field in a shot. But we're going to cheat it here because we're going to use our same water pre-comp as a blur map layer. And instead of kind of driving a gradient of depth of field, we're going to drive a gradient of blur that is motivated by some parts of the text being underwater. So all I need to do is select that map, crank up our blur level, and you'll see that only the parts of the text that are occluded by water are starting to get blurry, which, once I preview, just kind of reads as sort of an underwater distortion and helps sell that our text is actually partially submerged in the water. Now I am still free to change things in our Submerge comp. All I need to do is double click on the pre-comp and I have full access to all of the attributes that we gave it before. So I can even change the text to say Premiere, which is where I'm going to see you for the next bit of this tutorial. Alright, see you over in Premiere in a second. Hey everybody, we're here in Premiere and I just want to show you how to really quickly spice up a shot in this software using some assets from the Submerge pack. So here we have a clip of a man walking down a muddy moor, walking down a muddy trail, into the distance. Definitely looks like this could sort of be a rainy scene. There's definitely some light fog in the air. So why don't we jump into Submerge and let's find one of the rain clips. So as you can see in the Submerge rain clips, we have wonderful rain falling against black, but we also have it hitting black floor, which is fantastic because in a clip like this, we're going to get that real rain interaction on the ground and it's going to make everything look a whole lot more realistic. So I'm going to grab our water rain clip, drop it on top, trim it to length, and scale it to frame size. I'm now going to take that clip and let's change the blending mode to screen matte. And we're now going to take this clip and let's scale it up and position it exactly where we want it. Probably a little bit bigger, a little bit higher in frame so that the ground interaction makes sense. And I'm going to jump over to our effects panel and I'm going to find our tint effect, throw it on top, and I'm going to set the whites to be a little bit bluer so that it color matches better. I can now dial that in to exactly where I want it. And I think just to help out the effect a little bit more, I'm going to go to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and let's just crank up the blur a little bit to simulate some depth of field. And let's hit play. I think I can slide that up a little in frame to get some more ground interaction. Perfect. It's a rainy day and we didn't even have to leave the house. Why don't we jump over to Final Cut Pro and have a look at how to do a similar effect in that piece of software. Alright everyone, and here we are in Final Cut Pro and we have this great time-lapse footage of a thunderstorm brewing, and I think it would look really, really nice with some rain on top of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to find our rain. Our first layer is probably going to be rain 14. Let's drop it on top. And we're probably going to want to scale it up so that we don't see that ground interaction, since this is just a shot of the sky. And we're going to switch our blending mode to screen. And I'm also going to take the opacity way down because this is supposed to be smaller, more distant rain. Great. I'm going to grab our tint effect, throw it on top, and let's tint everything a little kind of dark blue just so that it matches a little bit better. You can see it just kind of fades into the background. Then we're going to grab our Rain 02, throw it on top, and this one we're going to scale up quite a bit. Because we have so much resolution to work with these, we're really able to kind of position things and scale them up and use them in a lot of ways, since they're 4 times the resolution of 1080p, which many artists use as their default resolution for web video still. We're then going to jump into blur. Grab a Gaussian blur, drop it on top. That is way too blurry. But we're going to go about there. This is just supposed to be our closer to the lens foreground rain. Change our blending mode to screen. And we're going to jump back into color. Going to go grab a tint, throw it on top. Make it a nice dark bluish green. Maybe even sample a bit of the sky. And then let's turn down the amount a bit. And maybe turn down the amount of blur. And then turn down the opacity a bit. And in just a few short minutes, we've created a very nice layered rain effect on our stock footage. That's it for me today. For more great stock footage, visual effects plates, and tutorials just like this one, be sure to visit shutterstock.com. I'm Matthew Naiman, and I'll see you next time.